Well, I think science is important because it provides kind of a rigorous framework for us to base our decisions on. Science is not learning the parts of a cell. Science is, the process of asking questions and developing an experiment and, coming up with solutions. When we make decisions about how we want to treat the planet or how we want to treat diseases or things like that, science allows us to approach that in kind of a systematic way that gives us the best results or the best outcomes. I think AP Biology is an important course for people to take that are interested in pursuing science at the next level because it prepares them better for college. It's designed to be the equivalent of a year-long course at the university level in biology. And even if they end up taking that course again, it gives them exposure to kind of a deeper level of content and to a more rigorous workload and to the idea that part of the responsibility for learning is on the student, which are all things that people will experience when they're in college. I consider AP Biology to be a very hands-on course. My approach to all my classes that I teach, including AP Biology, is that everything that we do, or virtually everything that we do, should be like student-centered and student-driven. So, one way to teach concepts in biology is to just tell you about them. And kind of historically, that's what was done in a lot of science classes. And kind of a newer approach to that is to have students do things that relate to all of those topics, with the idea that the process of doing a lab or an experiment or an activity that relates to protein synthesis or transpiration or whatever it is gives a better understanding of that material than simply having a teacher or professor stand in front of you and talk about it. You could argue that there are some parts that get left out. There's some of the detail maybe doesn't get addressed, or some of the opportunity to ask questions about certain things doesn't exist. And that might be true, but I believe that the trade-off is worth it. So, right now, my students just did an activity with protein synthesis where they're manipulating different things that represent different parts of that process. And I think at the end of the day, or at the end of the activity, students will know a lot more about that than if I just told them about that. We're in the middle of growing some plants to do a transpiration lab, and the same thing. You can read about transpiration, you can hear about it, but I think doing an experiment where you come up with some question that relates to transpiration and then set up the experiment and go through that process, I think gives you a much better understanding of those ideas. I'm a huge believer in the value of getting out of the classroom, and I think that anytime that my students have the opportunity to go outside go on a field trip, it gives a perspective on the material that they can't get in any other way. And I feel like I often say that this field trip, even though you're gonna miss my class or miss some other class, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what are you gonna remember about your high school experience? It's gonna be that trip that you took outside to scrape some lichen off the side of a tree, or it's going to be that history trip that you took to Washington, D.C. to have some real firsthand experience with something that relates to the curriculum. I think that's super important and perhaps one of the most important things we can do. I think AP Biology is a good stepping stone towards pursuing science at the next level. It gives you like I said before, some experience with a more rigorous curriculum, kind of lets you know what to expect when you're in college. Because of the way that AP Biology is structured in general and the way that I try to structure it, where students have the opportunity to design as many labs as possible, I hope that kind of sparks an interest in in biology and encourages people to pursue it, because that's really what science is. So I think in many ways AP Biology is a really good transition or exposure to that if somebody's interested in pursuing that field. I think science is interesting because there's not only is there always something new to learn, but it's also, I think we all like to solve problems, and I think that it makes us feel better about ourselves to solve problems, and science is an awesome tool to solve problems that we all face in the world. And so not only does that make the world better, but it also, just makes you feel better about your role on the planet and being a human being.
Alright, unplug the power supply.
Unplug.
We're just gonna toss it out like this. Do I have enough length to plug it in?
Can you put those in?
Nice job.
Alright.
You guys are pros.